Do you cast spells?
Yes.
Honestly, you have a really powerful, amazing energy that I'm sure you're well aware of. And so it is making me a tad dizzy.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I feel like if this is anybody's first listen, they'll be like, oh, it's articulate Sadie and that girl who chimes in.
When we interview, it goes back and forth. One of us is always like, whoa, and then one of us is capable of speaking.
Sadie's really carrying the weight today.
There's been other interviews where I can't talk. I'm just like, it goes back and forth. Hello and welcome to another episode of Goddess Hangs.
Episode 45.
Woo! We're kind of giggly because we just got done with a fucking amazing interview and oh my gosh, we're so excited for you to hear it. But before we dive into that, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Sadie.
And I'm Juliet.
Obviously. And we created this podcast, Goddess Hangs, to make the world of mindset, magic, manifestation, spirituality more relatable and fun. We had such an incredible interview to share with you today. Nicole Luna of Highest Good Readings. She's been a witch for over 15 years. She's a psychic medium and she took us to witch school today. Juliet was a little speechless.
Yes, you're going to hear a part where it gets really quiet and then I go, do you do spells? I just felt dizzy in her mystical presence and I was learning so much and I went into student mode.
Yes.
And I've never been afraid to ask any question and that really comes out in today's episode.
We were laughing because sometimes I'm the awestruck one and I can't ask questions, and then sometimes Juliet's the awestruck one. But Spirit manages to instill one of us with the courage to speak for every interview. So you probably notice that sometimes I don't talk during interviews and sometimes Juliet doesn't, and it's very funny.
We switch off, but we're so excited to introduce you to Nicole. Before we jump into this amazing true masterclass on modern witchcraft with Nicole Luna, we do have to tell you about something really exciting that's going on in the Goddess Hangs world.
We started our Patreon.
Patreon is here.
It's been 1 full week since we launched our Patreon.
It's been 1 week since we launched the Patreon.
It's been, I don't know the rest. That's what we're holding hands though.
At least
it's been 1 week since we launched the Patreon. 1 week since we made 16 new best friends.
16 new, but we're just going to keep holding hands.
It's intimate. We're having an intimate moment. This could be us. All of us.
All of us here. Let's
do it the more intimate way.
Oh.
This could be us.
Now we're reaching out to you.
I feel like I'm grabbing a boob.
That's not where my head went. But
Mommy? I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm already harassing the future Patreon members. Just kidding. We have 16 amazing people in 1 week.
1 week, 16 people said, I want to be your bestie. And we said, get over here.
Get over here. So we have everyone in this like insanely fun group chat. I mean, every morning I wake up to like 50 missed messages.
60 missed messages.
And then if I'm not looking at my phone for like an hour, there's like 100 missed messages. And it's all just everyone like talking about, oh, I worked this spell today. Oh my gosh, I pulled this card today. What do you think that means? And like everyone's just fucking magical and it's so fun. And I like it's better than I imagined, and it's been 1 freaking week. Like we've got these like hilarious inside jokes that crack me up.
Shout out to Tarot's.
Tarot's practice. We are the Tarot's Coven. Our coven members know what we're talking about. Our besties. And we have 3 tiers for our Patreon. So the first tier is only $5 a month. Less than a Starbucks cup of joe. And you get to be in our group chat.
We're getting texts right now.
Oh my God. It's a new person joining the chat.
Welcome.
You get to join the group chat. You get to join our close friends on Instagram, and we're following everyone. Everyone's following each other. You make all these new best friends, and it's just like there's so much like growth already happening. Like everyone's sharing their experiences and supporting each other. I'm like, y'all are carrying this group. I barely get a chance to chime in because someone else is answering the question asked, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
The second tier is $22 a month. It's the Coven, and you get all of the first tier perks plus a monthly hangout sesh with Juliet and I and all of your fellow Coven members. So
we all get to see each other.
Yes. So this month, this episode is releasing on Monday. So in 2 days, we're hosting our Halloween party where we're going to work a spell together and dress in costumes and have a blast, play Halloween music. And every month it'll be something different. Sometimes we'll work a spell together. Sometimes Juliet and I will channel readings for everyone in the Coven.
Yes.
Sometimes we'll do a Q&A. Sometimes, I don't know, we'll see like what we feel like it. It's going to be...
Holiday pajama party has been mentioned.
Yes, for sure. I'm so excited for the Halloween party. I can't wait.
I know. So if you're hearing this on Monday, the day that it is released, you have 2 days to hop into the Coven. If you are like, oh my God, that sounds so much fun.
Gotta come to the Halloween party.
Yeah.
And then our top tier is for the goddess who is all in.
The goddess who wants it all.
She gets everything from the first 2 tiers plus a monthly 1 or 2-on-1 rather private Zoom session with us for 30 minutes a month. You get to work with us. It'll be kind of like part reading, part coaching.
Yeah.
How we can best support you in your intentions and your journey. So if you're looking for more like long-term support and making shit happen in your life, this is an insane deal. It's only $200 a month.
And only 4 spaces available.
And only 4 spaces available. So for the VIP goddess, we are so ready. And yeah, it's been absolutely insane.
We've laughed, we've cried, we've learned. We launched this and I was like, oh, I'm sure people will
get a
trickle
handful.
in and
Yeah.
it'll be nice. And never did I imagine.
I also thought like, I don't know, every morning Juliet and I will take turns sending like an inspirational message and maybe someone will respond once in a while. No. We are talking all day long and it is the best. It is better than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to be talking at people and once in a while they would chime in. No, we are all in goddesses.
I was reading, there's more text. See, it's like, it's off the charts. It's off the charts. And you get to hear all this fun behind the scenes stuff and really personal stuff. Like I shared like pages from my journal this morning and we just get really deep and fun and everyone is so supportive of one another and we're gonna do everything in our power to just keep it that high vibe, it's magical, fabulous thing.
Unbelievably, it's the highest vibration, the most supportive group I've ever been a part of.
Me too.
And when I think about how it's something that Juliet and I nurtured and created and attracted, I'm like, it kind of freaks me out. I'm like, how did I attract all of these beautiful, amazing souls? Like it overwhelms me. And I can't wait for more of you to be a part of it. So the link is in the show notes if you're ready to join the BFF Coven Patreon. We're so ready to meet you. And all of our best friends are so ready to meet you. Every time someone new enters the chat, everyone goes, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh my
Here's
gosh.
our Instagrams. Make sure you share yours so we can follow you. Like everyone's so excited when a new person comes in.
If you've ever in your whole life felt misunderstood or unwelcomed or you don't belong, this will change all of that.
Yes.
And now's an amazing time to get in because the group is so small. There's 17 of us. Well, 19, including you and me.
Yeah.
So there's under 20 people at this moment. So you get a lot of back and forth conversation with everybody.
And we read everything.
And we respond many times a day. So it's basically
I'm in there all day long.
Day.
Yeah, it's fun. We can't wait for more of you to be a part of it. And I believe without further ado, it's time for this magical, mystical, one-of-a-kind interview with the witch, psychic medium, Nicole Luna.
Ding!
We have a very exciting guest with us today, Nicole Luna, who is a practicing witch of over 15 years, which is incredible. And she's also a psychic medium.
And we're just so happy to have her here. So,
hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yay! We're so excited. When I heard that you've been doing this for over 15 years, we're sort of still like in the baby witch phase. So we thought, oh my gosh, there's so much we can learn from you. There's so much you can teach us. So that was like the first thing that just lit up our hearts when we learned about you.
And I was like, 15 years? Did you start when you were 4? You look so young.
I'm 34 and started probably in my late teens. So
that makes sense.
What's the spell?
Yeah.
Of youth?
Teach us your youthful magic. You're like SPF and water.
Oh my gosh. So why don't we start there? Why don't you tell us about your journey and how it all began?
Sure. So I think I'd always really been interested in all kinds of paranormal, spiritual sorts of things. I remember, being a big scary movie kid, watching a lot of horror movies and loving getting scary books from the library and stuff like that. And then I think there was always a part of me that was really drawn to the idea of fantasy being reality. And so when I was in my early teens and I found out that witchcraft was actually a real thing and not just something from storybooks, I was instantly very intrigued. And, kind of fast forward through my high school years of, I went to a Catholic high school and would bring home books on the topic from the library, or I would buy books from my local bookstore and kind of keep them under wraps. Not that my parents would have been overly annoyed, just I kind of didn't want to get into it, especially if I wasn't sure if I was too serious, if that makes sense. So I was kind of like an armchair witch for a super long time. Like I just read everything I could get my hands on. There was still a little bit of like Catholic guilt, I suppose, from my upbringing. And I was really nervous to actually do witchcraft, to actually practice magic, but just tore apart anything I could get my hands on when it came to learning about the subject. And then when I was in university, I started to kind of take things a little more seriously and start actually practicing and working magic. And then I realized there was really nothing to be afraid of. Right. And I started to develop a really, really intimate relationship with spirit and certain goddesses. And I think that's kind of how it really got started, was a very keen interest and a lot of learning before actually doing. And there's no right or wrong way, I think, to get started. And I know a lot of people get started with the doing part. And that was just my personal journey. And a lot of it was based out of fear too, right? So there was a lot of fear that needed to be released before I could actually get started. But
right.
I was a teenager, so.
I feel like we have a lot of audience members that come, and I'm also from a Catholic background, so I totally get the Catholic guilt thing. And I hear from a lot of our community just saying like, I'm really interested, I'm really drawn to witchcraft, but they still carry that like that weird guilt or like that fear around it. So do you have any tips that helped you release? Was it like all of the learning you did before doing, or do you have anything to say to our audience members that are maybe still a little apprehensive, but they're like really drawn to the witchcraft part of their spiritual journey?
Yeah, I think the first thing is really acknowledging the fact that I was saying this to somebody the other day. I feel like whenever I talk about my path with witchcraft, I usually, in the first couple sentences, depending on who I'm talking to, I end up saying something like, "It's not what you think." Yeah. And I think that's a big thing to remember, right? Is kind of deprogramming ourselves and understanding that society has a big problem with specifically women who feel in control of themselves and feel powerful. And a lot of what we base our understanding of witchcraft on is that stigma that maybe certain sorts of knowledge, certain secrets, certain practices shouldn't be done. So I think really looking at kind of where the fear comes from and journaling about that, meditating on that, and starting small, like starting with small practices. I love a good self-love practice. I love a good protection spell, like things that are going to be making you feel at ease, making you feel comfortable, allowing you to kind of tune into your own power, I think would be a really great way for a lot of people to get started. And then reading everything you can. But that's not for everybody. Like that was just for me because I was kind of a nerdy kid and I really liked to read. So I was drawn to that. But now, you know, witchcraft is having a moment and I love it. And I'm super excited to see all these people who are really pumped about getting started, and there's more resources than there ever have been before. You know, there's amazing YouTube channels and you guys, and there's a wonderful podcasts and books, and I mean, we're in an amazing time for learning about witchcraft.
I love what you said about there might be layers of reasons why we're drawn to it, or parts of it, and I just think you're so right. There's something so beautiful about this is a way that women can, well, and everybody, but particularly women, can sort of harness power in their lives and do this thing that women sort of among women understand. Like
Totally.
It's just this really, and then you think back to our ancestors and women being, you know, what's the word, like not come after, but like in the Salem witch trials.
Yeah, it's fear of our
persecuted.
Power. Yeah,
persecuted for believing they have power and believing they can be in control of something. So I think that is sort of the root of why that's one of the roots why it sort of draws a lot of us in. And I love that. And you mentioned you worked with some goddesses. Who are your favorite goddesses to work with?
Well, goddess worship, working with goddesses, took me a little while because of the whole deprogramming piece, let's say. So it's not like I jumped in and said, okay, I'm a witch now. Like, who do I work with? I felt like I really took my time in that area as well. But the first goddess that I approached, because of my comfort level, I suppose, was Brigid. And she is also a Catholic saint. So I think that's why I initially felt comfortable with her, because I thought, well, she can't be that bad. So I started working with her, or approaching her, meditating on her stories, and started to receive signs in nature that she was ready to work with me. And then it was during a very kind of profound meditation experience that she was very, very much present, and gave me some information, and came through in a really beautiful kind of big sister, tough love kind of way, which kind of made me view her in a different kind of light. So her and I have been working together for a really, really, really long time. She comes through for me with oak leaves and acorns, and there's been some signs in nature. I don't know if you can see my necklace. It's an oak leaf and an acorn. And so she comes through for me in those sorts of ways. I also have two other goddesses that I have had, let's say, more of an acquaintance type relationship. So they are not necessarily goddesses that are super prominent in my practice, but that I'm continuing to learn about and continuing to meditate on. And they're like kind of newer relationships, let's say, that are beginning to start, because I take any kind of deity work very, very seriously. And I feel like there's a lot of people who kind of are into like deity collecting. They're like, oh, I've worked with this one and I've worked with these people. And it's like, that's cool, but it's just not my style necessarily, because it just like to take my time and get to know the energy I'm working with. But Freya has come through for me a few times, and she has been really helpful in kind of getting me out of my comfort zone and allowing me to kind of embody the energy that I need to be an entrepreneur, which recently, not recently, but recently became my 9-to-5. Now I'm a 9-to-5 psychic medium, whereas before I was actually a school teacher, and this was my nighttime gig. So she kind of helped me out with that, and she was showing up for me with cats. I would have like cats on my doorstep, cats following me home, all kinds of interesting things with cats. So yeah, and then I've also had I don't even want to say that I have a very strong relationship, but we're starting to get to know each other. Hecate and I are getting to know each other a little bit. She's helping me a little more with like the anxiety piece. I'm a Virgo moon, so I'm a bit of an anxious person. So she helps me out with that. And then I work with a god as well. I work with Odin. So the divine masculine took me a little bit more time to come around to. But once I did, it felt really good. It felt really powerful. It felt very balanced as well. So that's kind of my story when it comes to gods and goddesses.
So I wanted to ask, I love hearing about all of this goddess work and where goddess hangs. So we love hearing about goddesses. For someone that's ready to dip their toes in deity work, how do you sort of call that in for yourself? Like, what's a good way to sort of say, I'm open, I'm interested, and who's ready to work with me, what's the energy that would best serve me? Like, how do we sort of initiate that invitation for that next step?
So I think there's a lot of people in the witchcraft community specifically that are very much like, well, the deity chooses you and like you don't choose the deity. And I think I agree with that to some extent, except you kind of have to have an idea, I would assume, and an understanding of some of the energies that are potentially going to approach you and whether or not you're kind of open to working with them as well, because it is a relationship. It's probably going to start as a friendship. And then depending on the deity that you're working with, it could become very devotional. There are certain deities that require a little bit more and some that have a more playful kind of energy and a friendly energy. So it really depends on kind of your vibe. I would say first getting to know what you're open to in terms of your practice. So there are some deities, like I had mentioned, that require a little bit more devotion. So if you're just not the type of person to sit at your altar every night for an hour or give regular offerings, there may be some deities that you might not want to work with, or that they may not be the right ones for you at this time in your life. When it comes to opening up to the idea of receiving messages from deities and calling in a god or a goddess to work with, I would say meditation would be really important, as well as kind of setting up the intention that you're willing to start receiving signs. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. You can write a letter to whom it may concern and kind of put it out there that this is what you're looking for from a relationship with spirit. And you might want to specify that you're wanting to work with somebody who is like A, B, and C. Now, of course, this is not like ordering, your Uber Eats or something like that and being very specific or doing kind of romantic magic or love magic, but you want to let the universe know that you're open and that you're ready. And then you have to be patient because it can take a while, right? So I would, if I had a chance to do it all again, because I didn't like invite somebody. I just kind of showed up organically and over time. But if I had to do it all over again and I really wanted to work with the deity, I might write a letter and just kind of put it out there that, my spirit guides and the spirit that are currently around me, because we all have ancestors and spirits around us all the time, right? So we're not alone. That whole idea has to go right out the window. But when we're ready to start actively working with those energies, you can voice it out loud. You could write a letter, could light a candle, and then start looking for signs, whether it's in nature or other kinds of, it could be book suggestions that people have for you. You know, it could be that you pull certain cards. The tarot is a great way of figuring out archetypes of different deities to work with. So if you have like a stalker card that seems to be following you around, that could be a little hint as well.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Very cool.
I'm wondering what your daily witchcraft routine is.
Interesting. Okay, so I think we have to get over this whole idea that like modern witches are just always casting spells. They have like cauldrons all over their house and they're just constantly doing magic all the time, because that's not my reality. And it's not the reality of many witches that I know. However, making your life magical can look very mundane to somebody who doesn't know what you're up to, right? So intentionally doing certain things or certain practices in your home, even though like they're everyday things, like pouring yourself a cup of tea, stirring in the honey in a certain direction, carrying certain crystals with you when you go out for the day, doing a daily card pull for yourself, taking a bath, but then, allowing the tub to completely drain and doing some visualization work as the water goes down the drain to remove excess or lower energy from your energy field or from your body. You're just taking a bath, you're just making a cup of tea, you're just going out for the day. But just that extra tiny step is what makes it a more magical experience. And then obviously, depending on how serious of a practitioner you are and the kind of devotional work that you're doing at deity, then maybe you have a special prayer that you say every morning when you wake up. Or for me, it's more acknowledging the cycles of the moon, the wheel of the year, and then those magical moments throughout my day.
Yeah, I think so much of witchcraft is just bringing intention into like the everyday. Because when I make my tea and I put like cinnamon in, I'm like, oh, abundance is coming my way today. And if I'm like scrubbing the stove, I'm like, oh, I'm clearing, this energy out of my kitchen. I'm welcoming in new high vibrational light energy. It's just making everything sort of almost like a little game. Like, oh, I'm doing this now. I'm doing this now. Like it's just brings so much magical fun into your day when you're doing just the everyday mundane tasks.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I also want to learn more about your psychic medium background and how that's developed and what that experience is like for you.
Have you guys gone through your Saturn return?
Yes.
Okay.
We just did.
So that was a huge part of that for me.
Same.
Is that your case as well?
We had no idea until like last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always, I would say it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. What came first, divination or witchcraft for me? Because I was using tarot, and I can't, to be completely honest, the lines are very blurred. I'm not sure what came first, modern witchcraft or tarot practice. So using the tarot for myself and for friends and family was something I was doing when I was in my late teens and into my 20s. And then I think that it was kind of friends and I used to get together. I would say like once or twice a month-ish. We used to call it stitch and bitch. We all really liked doing crochet and knitting and stuff like that. And then we would, we slowly started to introduce like some witchcraft practice. So I would bring my cards and one day they would bring, ingredients so that we could all do a charm bag or something, little things like that. And so when I started doing readings for friends, eventually, people would suggest that I do a reading for so-and-so. And it then just, slowly evolved from that to then being paid for readings. And then when I was in my late 20s, so going through my Saturn return, I had my first child and I was on maternity leave, and babies are a lot of work, but they also sleep a lot, like 18 hours a day, a lot, or at least mine did. I was very lucky, I guess, in the earlier days. So I needed something to occupy my time. So I created a business for myself and just wanted to see how it would take off. And it did. It went very, very well. And for a couple of years, I was kind of straddling, when I went back to work as a teacher, I was straddling the two. And then it came to a point where I couldn't do both anymore. And my North Node's in Aries, and I'm pretty called to entrepreneurial work, have been for a very, very long time. And I'm sure, as you both know, like with the Saturn return, you're kind of forced to look at who you are and if what everybody told you are is the truth. And for me, it wasn't. I was supposed to be doing something else. So I actually left my job and now I'm a full-time psychic medium. But yeah, the development of the intuitive gifts, I would say, really, really opened up when I started doing them professionally, the readings professionally. Pushing myself more to connect with spirit. I think that being pregnant actually it's not necessarily the case for everybody, but for me, it kind of allowed me to open up to my gifts a little bit more.
I was going to ask, like, getting pregnant and becoming a mom, did you feel, I don't know, I've been thinking about this lately. I'm like, I feel like when I have a kid, I'm going to like level up my psychic magic ability. I feel like it opens a portal. Did you feel that way? Neither of us.
Okay, I don't want to scare you, but I'll tell you why I think it does, okay? I think it's because there is a really real moment when you're gonna have a baby, when you're going to give birth. I mean, unless you're amazing and you're never anxious at all, and like, I don't know.
That's not who you're speaking
to. For me, and for a lot of people I know, there's a moment where you come to terms with the idea that like, holy shit, I might die having this baby. Like something could happen to me where I could physically die, right? And there's like this transformation that can happen through childbirth where you make peace with that. And I do think that one of the gifts can possibly be connecting with the other side and having that veil just slightly more thin than it used to be, at least for your own personal practice. Mm-hmm. Not to scare you. You're not like, I just, it's something you have to like think about, right?
Yeah. Well, and you're also like bringing a whole ass new life into this world. That's pretty magical.
So you die in a way, right? Like you, how you were. And then we all kind of do. We all go through that transformation with the Saturn return anyway. Mine just was intensified by the fact that a baby came out on the other side, right? So yeah. I was no longer just me. I was somebody's mom. So I transformed in different kinds of ways. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Amazing.
What has been one of your most like profound or interesting moments as a psychic medium? Like a reading that stands out, or maybe it was something personal within your own practice, but what was like not spooky, scary, but like a spooky moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is real.
Okay. So when I opened up to mediumship, so I resisted mediumship for a very long time. I was like, no. I read tarot cards. And like, sometimes I feel like I get psychic nudges from my spirit guides. And the idea of working with dead people never, ever appealed to me. It felt scary. It didn't feel safe for whatever reason. But I think that when I started hearing the names of people who had passed on in readings and actually telling people the names that I was receiving and getting confirmation that those names were indeed people that had passed and that they wanted to hear from, though that was really eye-opening, because I was like, well, especially when the names were random names, like names that didn't make total, like not, like Joe or John or, like not typical names. And then I actually, this was a little bit of a learning moment. I had a physical encounter with spirit where spirit touched me, like physically touched me. And it was during my first visit to Salem, Massachusetts, when I was staying at an Airbnb there. And I thought that a friend of mine we were sharing a bed for our stay. And I thought that she was like kicking me or something under the covers at night. And it definitely was not her. So I learned pretty quick after that I needed to start setting some ground rules with spirit. And then once I did that, like I literally, and I've told many of my clients this before, and people who have, who are opening up to mediumship and work with me, that it's really important to have a list of rules that spirit must follow. So I actually have a physical list that stays on my nightstand and it looks a little weird. And anybody who comes to my house probably thinks I'm a total whack job, but like it helps so much to just stand your ground and like put those boundaries into place with spirit, just the same way that you would with people in your life.
Right.
Would you be open to sharing some of those ground rule boundaries?
Yeah. So mine would be different than, I mean, yours, you could be totally cool with spirit touching you in the middle of the night. I am not. Like, do not wake me up. Like, don't touch me. I still feel that that's an invasion of my privacy and a little bit scary. So the number one rule is please don't touch me and don't wake me up in the middle of the night. That's one rule. I have a 4-year-old, so I also ask them not to interact with her. Children can be very sensitive to spirit, and sometimes they're not able to like tell you what's wrong or like what they're experiencing. So that's the second rule, is that they're not allowed to interact with my daughter. What is it? Oh, I've also set the rule that spirit's only allowed to interact with me when I have formally opened a door for them to do so. So I'll verbally invite them to come in during a reading and deliver messages. So basically, there's not a whole lot of flexibility, I would say, for spirit to just come in whenever they want to, other than family members. So my home is pretty much open to my ancestors and obviously my spirit guides. And my husband's family members are oddly very present in my home. And I feel like I've gotten to know them better after they've passed more than I did when they were alive, because he's Italian and a lot of them didn't speak English. So like we didn't get along, or not get along. We got along, but we didn't have a super close relationship. But now that they're on the other side, I'm like, yeah, your nona's in the hallway or whatever, like whatever. So it's been pretty cool. It's been really cool.
Do you physically see spirit, or is it in your mind's eye? I just love asking how everybody experiences it.
Yeah, so I get it in my mind's eye when I interact with spirit. I feel like that's my own boundary, to be honest with you, because I do know people who can physically see them, and sometimes you can see them in the way that they were when they passed, and I would prefer to not open myself up to that. I just like, I like the idea of trying to keep things light when it comes to mediumship, because it is the emotions alone that you are dealing with when you're connecting with deceased people who have messages for their loved ones, and then also interacting with those people who want to hear those messages from their loved ones. Like, the emotions are heavy enough for me as it is. I would prefer to not see with my eyes. So I can close my eyes and see. I can hear, and I used to call it thought pops when I was starting off in mediumship. So I would say, I just had this thought pop into my head, because I couldn't rationally couldn't say for sure that it was the case, and then I would deliver the message, and sometimes it would be the case. So
on the flip side of creating these beautiful, strong boundaries, what are some things that you do or you would recommend for those of us who want to who maybe have, I maybe have too many boundaries. How can we open up more and invite spirit in more?
I would say, so you're talking about your spirit guides, or are you talking about deceased people?
I'm talking about all of it, or whatever you want to get into. Yeah.
So I would say doing exchanges with people is a really great way to practice. So if you know somebody who's also developing their mediumship skills, doing an exchange, giving each other honest feedback about what you picked up. I love channeled writing. So I love just writing in a journal and kind of seeing what comes through. The other little tool that I love to do with spirit, especially if I'm anxious, and this is a good little thing for people with anxiety issues, is writing down whatever it is you're nervous about in a journal, but don't respond to it and elaborate. Just kind of, write down your fear-based question. Let's say it's a question, And then later on, when you're in a better mindset and you've been doing some meditation, or you're kind of feeling like you're in the zone, you're ready to connect with spirit, light a candle and say something verbally. I like to verbalize to spirit that you're ready to connect, that you're willing to receive messages, and then return to the questions that you had asked in your journal and answer them. And don't think too much about it. Just answer them. Don't wonder who's coming through, whose advice it is, who's giving you the information. Just answer the questions. And you're going to doubt yourself and question whether it's just you or you're just making it up or whatever. But like, you'll find over time that there will be an energy shift in the kinds of messages that you receive. That's how I met my spirit guides, was through doing the journaling. Suddenly my voice became somebody else's voice. And then they developed very specific ways of answering my questions. Like, one of my guides is very sassy and is very like opinionated about, when I'm being ridiculous and stuff. So they'll come through in that kind of way. And then I have one that's more of a mothering kind of energy and a little bit more gentle, but she only comes out to play like when there's serious spiritual business going on. It's usually my sassy guide just telling me to like, cut it out and like not freak out all the time.
Yeah. I think we both have a sassy guide where it's like, you keep asking the same question. I know you're looking for a different answer. Just get on with it already.
Exactly. And I mean, there are certain tools and techniques that you can use as well. If you're open to working with plant energy or plant medicines, like a mugwort, tincture or tea can be really great to help open up to channeling, to and any kind of divination, to be quite honest, this time of year specifically. And then also, we often talk about Samhain and around Halloween as being the time of the year when the veil is very thin and you're able to connect with spirit and you can do divination in amazing ways. But we have that opportunity like once a month with the full moon. And then not just that, but in the springtime, close to Beltane, close around May the 1st, we also have a thinning of the veil that happens at that time. So we have all these beautiful opportunities throughout the year that makes it a little easier for us to tap in and kind of upgrade our skills, so to speak. And then when I mentioned plant medicine, I'll also include cannabis with that. So if you're somebody who enjoys the odd session or the frequent session, depending on who, your practice, setting an intention for your session so that you're going to use the gifts of the plant to help you to open to spirit. And then, of course, call around your guides and the spirits that protect you to guide you through that process, because that really opens you up, right? So that can be really beautiful too. I love doing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that sorry, my questions jump around. Do you
No
find
worries.
that your 4-year-old, I just watched this whole thing about children who remember their past lives, knowing that you're so open, and that at age 4 we are all very open. Okay, here's my 2-part question. Does your child ever say things that make you go, oh, that's a memory from a past life? And or do you remember anything from a past life of yours?
So I haven't gotten any clues about past life stuff yet. My daughter seems to be very connected to nature. So like she seems to be just very in her element out in the forest, and like that's kind of her vibe. Yeah, she seems to be really connected to kind of nature spirits, but we haven't heard anything about past lives yet. Not yet. Although when she was really, really, really small, like maybe 3 months, like teeny tiny, I started playing, trying to remember, I don't even remember the song, but it was like Sanskrit kind of meditative music, but there was Sanskrit singing in the background. So I remember one time I put it on before bed. This was like the first time she had heard this particular song. And she just looked at me and started bawling her eyes out, but not like in the way that a baby gets gas pains, or like not in that kind of way, like in a a remembering kind of way. And she was just sobbing, like weeping, like tears. It was so sad. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I'm here now and you're here with me now. And like, whatever happened before, it's okay. Like it was that moment was very powerful, but I'm sure we'll hear something at some point from her. But yeah, for me, I don't have a specific memory, but I'm sure that I had some sort of persecution issue in the past when it came to something I was up to, whether it was some sort of a witchcraft thing or something, just because of the fear and the resistance that I had to actually practicing, and that like armchair witch experience that I had mentioned from the beginning. I'm sure that that had something to do with me being nervous about, getting caught or something happening to me.
Yeah. What are some ways maybe you do now or you plan to like practice witchcraft like as your daughter grows? Like how do you include her in some of your practices, like to nurture her connection? She
loves tarot cards. Like she's obsessed with them. And I had to actually get her own deck just so that she would leave all of mine alone, because I have lots of them like all over the house. I actually got her a really cool, it was not a tarot deck, an oracle deck that's specifically for kids. I don't remember the name of it right now, but that's one way I would say is kind of getting her to kind of talk about and interpret the artwork in cards, because kids are very open and honest about what they see. And then I think also she likes doing things with candles. She loves any opportunity, I think, to kind of get her hands dirty. So I think that going out into nature and if we're ever bringing things home with the intention of putting them on the altar or something like that, that's an easy way. And then also, we haven't really gotten into it yet. Maybe this Halloween might be, so the last couple of years, she's, she gets it. She understands trick or treat and all of that kind of stuff. But now it might be time to start talking about what's actually going on without being a little bit scared by it. So I think this year we might attempt to do what's called a silent supper. Sometimes people call it a dumb supper. I really don't love the term dumb supper, but which is basically when you just sit down to dinner on Samhain and you don't talk, and you invite the energy of your ancestors to dine with you. And sometimes you'll leave a little plate of food for them. So we'll try it this year. She's very chatty, so I don't know how long she'll last. But maybe if we explain to her that, Nona's eating dinner at the end of the table, then maybe she'll try to get it. But yeah.
You said you're going to teach her what's really going on this time of year. What is really going on?
Let's talk about
what's really going on. So I think that it's easy to kind of get distracted with all the spookiness. And for me, this is just really a time to honor our ancestors and to connect with the healing capability that's possible by doing that, by having a relationship with your ancestors. Because whether we kind of fully understand how it affects us or not, there are certain trends and patterns that seem to exist with families. And I think that when our ancestors are in spirit, they have a fuller perspective and range of understanding about how these patterns and how these behaviors can affect people. And it's my belief that our ancestors actually want us to do well. Like they want to see their family members succeed. And so by having that relationship with our ancestors and around Samhain and around, between the month of October and let's just say all the way up until December, things are pretty thin when it comes to the veil and being able to connect with spirit. So using this time to kind of go within and reconsider the relationships that you have with certain family members, whether or not there's any patterns or behaviors in your life that may stem from some sort of family patterns, and trying to process those things, trying to heal those things in the ways that we know how. I think just awareness is super important. I think this is the time of the year where we become very aware of what we've done, up to this point in the year, because around October time too is when we start to feel the energy of the new year, believe it or not. It's like there's only a few months left, and there's this weird urgency and kind of moment, I think, that happens for a lot of us where we kind of take stock around this time. It's a third harvest festival. So it's almost the energy of, are we going to be okay over the winter? Like, we're about to go into the dark season. And what are we bringing with us? Mm-hmm. So it's a contemplative time. It's a quiet time. And all the coziness of autumn lends to that really, really well. Right. So yeah, I think that this is the time of year where we have to contemplate what we're bringing with us into the next year. So we have to get quiet. We have to get quiet during this time.
I love that. Besides the silent supper, do you have any other rituals that you that are sort of traditional for you during this time of year?
Well, I like to set up an ancestor altar with pictures of people in my life who've passed away. And I like to leave little things out for them. So whether it's like, honestly, sometimes it's Halloween candy. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I have a kid, we're trick-or-treating, we're doing all that stuff. So like, sometimes it's candy, and my ancestors, some of them would have really appreciated that. But usually it's, a little portion of whatever we ate for dinner that night. We'll light some candles on the ancestor altar and leave that out until the evening, just before we go to bed. And then I put whatever's left from the offering out in the garden. And then usually I do some sort of divination, whether it's some tarot cards or another really fun thing to do for Halloween, or sorry, not Halloween, but for Samhain is working with any other kind of tools like runes or a pendulum, just because it's just a great time for doing any kind of divination work. Yeah.
Do you cast spells?
Yes.
Honestly, you have a really powerful, amazing energy that I'm sure you're well aware of. And so it is making me a tad dizzy.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's I feel like if this is anybody's first listen, they'll be like, oh, it's articulate Sadie and that girl who chimes in.
When we interview, it goes back and forth. One of us is always like, whoa, and then one of us is capable of speaking.
Sadie's really carrying the weight today.
There's been other interviews where I can't talk. I'm just like, it goes back and forth.
Do you cast spells? It's like the sloth from Zootopia. That was me. Okay.
Well, let's talk about spells a little. Do you cast them? Tips for like someone new to casting spells. We talk about spells lots on here, but
that's
what's Nicole's take on spell work?
So I think it depends on, okay, so first I want to talk about why spells are like, they can possibly be a band-aid. Okay. So what I mean is, we don't want to be, if you find yourself casting the same spell over and over and over again, like, oh, I really need to pay my rent this month, I'm going to cast a spell. Okay, cool. I managed to make another however much to pay my rent. And then the next month, okay, now I'm short again. I'm going to cast another money spell and like, let's bring in some more money. Okay, I've paid my rent. If you find that there is a pattern with what you're doing when it comes to spell casting, you probably don't need to be casting a spell for that exact thing. There's probably some deeper work that needs to be done, some deeper magical work. So I love a good spell, because a spell is essentially, it's like a prayer with props, right? So you get to ask the spirit around you, ask your deities that you work with to come and help you with this. But if you keep calling on somebody and asking for help for the same thing over and over and over again, one of two things is going to happen. Either spirit's not going to take you very seriously, and they're going to be a little bit annoyed with the fact that you're not helping yourself, right? Or potentially you're just missing the point. You're just missing the point of all of this. Like, spells are a tool, and they're meant to exist when we need a little bit of a boost, a little bit of help. But witchcraft and magic is so much more than that. It's more about personal evolution, personal transformation. And I'd much rather see somebody decide that they want to intentionally work on manifesting a better career so that they don't have to keep casting the money spell once a month. And you can call on your deities to help you with that as well. Or maybe the spell doesn't need to just be a generic prosperity spell. Maybe it needs to be a motivation spell because you've been putting off applying for those jobs that would give you more money to go out there and not have to do the same thing over and over. So yeah, sorry I felt like I had to say that. Now I'll backtrack and go back to your initial question. A good spell for beginners. I really like candle magic for beginners. I think it's a really good way to start. It's pretty straightforward and easy to understand. There are a lot of ins and outs about like, oh, which way do I swipe the oil on my candle? And like, should I carve something in my candle? And like, you just need to do, it's like the magic follows the path of least resistance. And that includes how you cast your spell. So if you're freaking out because you can't remember all the rules or you don't have the right herbs or whatever, it's like, just omit that part, like, you got a white candle, white will go with for any intention, you have some olive oil, perfect, or any kind of oil, really look into it. Like you probably have the tools you need to cast the majority of any kind of beginner spell work in your spice cabinet. I also love like cutting open a tea bag and using like the contents of a tea bag when I can't go and get my herbs. Just make things simple, create a simpler version of the spell that you're aiming for. If you're a beginner, if you see something in a book and it requires a lot of expensive ingredients, go back to the main part of the spell. So if it's a candle, okay, I've got my white candle. They asked for red, whatever, I have white. They asked me to carve this sigil into the candle. I don't know what a sigil is, so I'm not going to do that part. Don't jump 10 steps ahead. Just stick with what you're comfortable with until you understand all of the different elements, because the correspondences and the ingredients and the things that we use, if they don't mean something to you, they're pretty pointless, to be honest. Right. If they don't have an energetic meaning for you in your practice, you might as well leave them out.
Yeah. And I always think like, part of the fun of witchcraft is sort of following your intuition and going like, now I kind of know what stuff is, but I would go into like my kitchen spice cabinet and be like, what do I feel drawn to today? And then sort of collect things and just see like what I felt like doing. And then I would sort of Google or look up later or look in my books like, well, why was I drawn to this and this and that? And then it was amazing because I was like, that's exactly what I needed. But my intention was just like, I just want to be drawn to what I need. I don't need to know what it means. And that was a fun way to learn. So that's something I always suggest too when you're starting out is like, what do you feel like you're drawn to? Like what feels good and sort of learn from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that there's a lot of value in using your intuition to create spells that work for you. And, I know that beginners typically will turn to books, but creating your own spell can be incredibly powerful. Sometimes just utilizing one of the elements can be powerful. Like I cast a spell every time I wash my hands, and we do that a lot throughout the day. Right. So, sometimes it's just about intention. And there is like a whole path of witchcraft that people are referring to now as intuitive witchcraft. So yeah, you're onto something.
There you go. That's what I do, I guess.
There you go. Do you use crystals in your practices?
Yes. I actually, so before I started doing the psychic mediumship, I got my Reiki master. And I became a certified crystal healer as well, because I wanted to use crystals within my sessions. I don't really do the energy work stuff anymore. I just, with COVID and everything, taking people personally, and it's more something I use for my family and friends. But I do use crystals on my altar, and I like making crystal grids part of my magic. I love using crystals to kind of boost a candle spell. So just like placing crystals strategically with my candle that I'm using, I find that's really great.
And what's the spell you say when you wash your hands?
So when I wash my hands, I use a soap that's been designed to bring in prosperity and good health. It's a green soap. I can't remember who the maker is, unfortunately, but I just kind of wash my hands and I just say, I'm healthy, wealthy, safe, and loved today and every day, today and every day. And then I do that as I lather my hands, and then I rinse it off.
I love that.
Oh, I want to try that. I love that very much.
Magic and bringing magic into the mundane.
And yeah, when you're washing, like you intentionally, you could wash towards yourself. Like you could lather in your direction, right? You could there's so many ways that you can meaningfully like take it to the next level if you wanted to.
Well, it sounds like everything in our lives we can meaningfully take to the next level.
Absolutely. The color of lipstick that you choose, like there's so many cool ways that you can imbue yourself with your magic.
Yeah. I know, it's just endless. Like, and I don't know, people are like, how do I get started in witchcraft? I'm like, literally any way you want. You're probably already doing witchy stuff. You just don't call it witchcraft.
Absolutely. And I think that there's like this huge trend right now the thing is, as people, we love to define ourselves. And so inevitably we want to define what we do in our practice, right? And so there's of course, every Instagram meme about, are you a cottage witch? Are you a princess witch? Are you a green witch? Are you a this witch? It's like, you're a witch. We don't have to define everything that we do, right? Like we don't have to do that. Now, obviously, if you're deciding to enter a very specific tradition of witchcraft, that's different. You may want to, if you're going to be Gardnerian or Alexandrian, that's Wicca, but like there's so many other branches of witchcraft that require training and an initiation and all these other kinds of things. But if you're feeling called to, I'm doing this modern witchcraft sort of thing. I don't really totally know what I'm doing. I'm reading books and learning every day. I'm using my intuition. Maybe one day I'll pick a tradition. Like if you're on that path, like you don't need to define yourself, and you're not the same person that you were 3 months ago today. Right. So I don't love to define what I do. Like I've had a couple people say, I think I'm feeling really called to cottage witchcraft. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean you are a witch that owns a cottage? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's like, well, no, it means that like, I do things that could be more outdoorsy. It's like, okay, but so do so many other witches. Like, it's weird to me. I don't understand all of that. It's a great way for people to make money and sell books for sure. But it doesn't appeal to me.
No, I'm just a witch, and whatever I feel called to today, I will put intention into that. I love that. What are some ways that our listeners can connect with you, work with you? What are some of your offerings? I'm sure they're dying to get more Nicole after hearing all of your amazing wisdom.
Yeah. So every month I do a full moon spirit circle, which is really fun. I'll actually have one tonight on Zoom. And that is a group of people. I cap it at 12 people because I don't record it, because the things that we talk about in circles sometimes are very personal and I want people to feel comfortable in that space. But that is basically it. A lot of people don't love to like dedicate too much time to online Zoom stuff. And I totally get that. We have busy lives, but this is a way of a no nonsense kind of witchcraft circle where you can come for an hour once a month and we do some releasing work. We offer back gratitude for the things that have been uncomfortable, but that we've learned from. And then I offer channeled messages to everybody who comes. So I literally connect with spirit right then and there, give people the information that they need. And we do a little bit of a guided meditation in our ritual and we close out. So it usually takes about an hour and 15, something along those lines, depending on spirit's plan. And yeah, I do that once a month. And then I would say my most popular offering is the psychic mediumship readings. So for those, I use tarot cards and I connect with spirit. And I also have another service that I call my channeling session. And that's when I actually channel using plant medicine in advance before our reading. And then we get together and I tell you everything that came through from spirit and I journal about it. And then we can pull cards if there's questions. And then afterwards, I actually send you a physical letter. So it's like a handwritten letter. I use a wax stamp. I get like super witchy with like calligraphy and stuff when I send the letter out. And then that's like, I call it a letter from spirit. So that's like a keepsake for you. So you could choose to open it the second that you receive it in the mail, or you could choose to hold on to it until one day you're like, what was Nicole telling me that time? And then you can open it up and have that with you. Yeah. So I offer lots of different stuff. It's always changing. I love doing like witchcraft courses. Right now I'm offering a full year course. It's called Modern Witchcraft for Beginners. Today is actually the last day to enroll. So it won't open up again until next fall. But there's always lots of little witchcraft classes and workshops and things that I'm trying to offer. And yeah, I have a website. It's www.highestgoodreadings.com. And I'm on Instagram as @highestgoodreadings. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's me.
Amazing. Well, we will be sure to put all of your links in the show notes. So everyone make sure you go and follow Nicole. Did you have any like last questions or?
Oh, did you say where you live, where you're from?
Oh yeah. Sorry. I'm just north of Toronto. So in Canada.
A Canadian witch.
A Canadian witch. Yes.
Is that popular where you are?
Yes. I would say it's probably we have about the same. I mean, it's not the same level, I would say, of practitioners in terms of diversity. Like we have, it's a very strong Wiccan community, I would say, especially in Ontario. But yeah, we have practitioners of all sorts.
Cool.
I love that.
Very cool.
I love that.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. This was such a fun hour getting to know you. So everyone make sure you go follow @highestgoodreadings on Instagram. We are @goddesshangs. I am Sadie Olson.
I'm @juliet.piper.
And we can't wait to see you next week.
Bye. Bye.